Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to the 17th episode of Friday Night Real Talk at channel tt.tv. This is Nazrul Haq, and you can join us live at Roku TV, Facebook, YouTube by just typing channel tt.tv. Viewers, this evening we have a great show, and this show is brought to you by Seniors Multi-Service SMS Inc. As you know, New York State বয়স্কদের আস্থা SMS Inc-এর পূর্ণ ব্যবস্থা. Please call them if you need help. 347-778-5252. Again, we have a great show today, and I'd like to introduce with you our two great guests, very outstanding guests. We have here today Mr. Kenny Vargas, Assembly Member Kenny Vargas from District 85, and also Emmanuel Martinez, Chairman of Community Board 7. He's also male state committee member. Please welcome both of these young gentlemen to our show. And before I go further, I just want to give you a little highlight what we're going to talk about today. So our caller, who is already joined us, please feel free to share our Facebook coverage with your group, so all your friends have opportunity to discuss, because we're discussing very important issues, which is are following. কিভাবে উচ্চ সংখ্যক গৃহহীন আশ্রয়কেন্দ্রগুলো অ্যাসেম্বলি ডিস্ট্রিক্ট 85 এবং ব্রোঞ্জকে প্রভাবিত করছে। আমাদের কমিউনিটির যুবকরা এবং যারা ডোমেস্টিক ভায়োলেন্স এবং মাদক সেবনের কারণে যে সামাজিক অবক্ষয়ের যে কারণগুলো তা কি হতে পারে। রেকলস আইল্যান্ডের যে জেলখানা আছে সেটার বন্ধ করার ব্যাপারে আপনার অবস্থান কি, আপনার চয়েস, আপনি কি মনে করেন যে সেটি বন্ধ করে আমাদের কমিউনিটিতে বিভিন্ন এলাকাতে ছোট ছোট উপজেল সৃষ্টি করা দরকার? আমাদের পুলিশ, নিউ ইয়র্ক সিটির পুলিশ ডিফান্ড নিয়ে কথা হচ্ছে, এবং সেটার ব্যাপারে আপনার অবস্থান কি জানাবেন, এবং পুলিশ ডিফান্ডের সাথে আমাদের স্ট্রিট ক্রাইমের সম্পর্ক কি এটা জানাবেন। তাছাড়া ফাইনালি স্বাস্থ্য, পরিবেশ এবং অপরাধ, শিক্ষার মতো আর্থসামাজিক কারণগুলোর জন্য ব্রোঞ্জ শহর কেন অন্যান্য বড়গুলোর থেকে অনেক পিছনে র্যাঙ্কিংয়ে, এই সব কিছু নিয়ে আমরা আলোচনা করব। প্লিজ ওয়েলকাম Assemblyman Kenny Vargas, and also the male state committee member and community board 7 member Emmanuel Martinez. Please welcome to the show. I welcome both of you. So please, before you go, I'd like to ask you, both of you gentlemen, how are you doing? You can Kenny can ask me first. Do you do the vaccine yet, and how we doing overall for our community to get the vaccination? Kenny Vargas, please.
I'm sorry, Naz. I think you broke up there.
Yeah, okay.
You repeat the question?
Can you hear me well? Is Emmanuel? Can you hear me well? I'm losing a volume.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, Kenny, can you hear me now?
I hear you clearly now. Sorry
Very
about
good.
that.
So I was asking how you doing, and also did you have a chance to do the vaccination, and also how we doing citywide for people to doing the vaccination?
Well, yes, so I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, and again, thank you for having me here tonight. I myself have not had a chance to get vaccinated. Based on the guidelines that the governor has put out, I am not eligible at this moment to get vaccinated. I'm looking forward to the moment that I can get vaccinated. But at this moment, the governor has just put a word out for eligibility out for seniors, for people who work in healthcare facilities, for people who work in childcare. And actually just now, there's just news that starting February 15th, there will be eligibility for people who have underlying conditions such as cancer, heart condition, if you're immunocompromised, severe obesity, diabetes, and things like that. So slowly but surely, we'll have more vaccines coming down the line, and more New Yorkers will be eligible, which is a great thing.
Thank you. Emmanuel, do you have any information citywide that you can share with our viewer about the vaccine? And did you get the vaccine yet?
So, thank you so much for bringing me on to your channel tonight, and also thank you to SMS and the good work you guys do in the district. In terms of the vaccine, I'm actually fall in the same category as Kenny. We're both young millennials, so unfortunately we're not eligible to take the vaccine as of yet. But from a community board perspective, my community board has one of the highest rates of COVID positive tests in the city. So, our big initiative is making sure that everyone is getting tested. But in terms of initiatives in the Bronx, they did unveil a vaccine hub that's going to be taking place from Yankee Stadium. They began announcements of the program just a couple of days ago. It was just unveiled. So anyone who's looking to get vaccinated and you do fall within the guidelines, I suggest for you, to visit the New York City Health Department website, and you'll be able to go on and sign up if you are eligible to obtain the vaccine.
Thank you. Kenny, if I may ask, because I know you are a young, new elected official, I should say, I believe it is your first term. So I want you to tell a little bit about yourself to our viewer. What is your main goal as an elected official to achieve, and what is the area you mostly working now, and what is your ultimate destination? What do you like to do within your term? So our viewer can know you a little bit about how you do.
Thank you, Naj. So I was born and raised here in the Bronx. For those who don't know, I represent the 85th district, so that covers the areas of Soundview, Hunts Point, Longwood, and pretty much that kind of 10472, 104th Street zip code. And yes, this is my first time being elected, but I've worked in city government for about 5 years now, so this is my first time working now at state government as a representative. Right now, as we all know, we're here in this moment. COVID-19 is still ravaging through our communities. I think the Bronx and my community has been hit one of the hardest, I would say, throughout the city. So my biggest focus here at the state level, it really is recovery. The Bronx has some of the worst health conditions, economic conditions right now, and that path to recovery is going to be a long one. So I'm here in the state level just looking to make sure we bring those resources here to my community to help our community really come out of this pandemic fruitful and prosperous and better than we were even prior to COVID. And the way we're going to do that, in my opinion, is really by raising this revenue in New York State. We have a fiscal crisis that some estimate to be over $15 billion. And in that kind of moment, I don't believe New York State should be looking to cut any sort of services. I think at this moment, we need to look at new ways of creating tax revenue. And that's going to be looking at some of the wealthy people in New York. We're talking billionaires and multi-millionaires who have done very well during the pandemic. While many people in my community have gone hungry, to be very honest. So this is the moment where I think New York needs to find that new revenue to fill this budget gap and, again, help these communities come out of the COVID pandemic much better than we are right now.
Thank you. You touch base very two important issue which is a budget gap, and also you talk about the health and education of the Bronx, which is my talking point. I will come back and talk more about it. But I want to ask Emmanuel that I know Emmanuel, even though he is not elected official I don't yet, but he do play a major role to elect the others. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself in your community board, and what is your working goal, and what are you trying to achieve, and what are you doing so far mostly during this pandemic, and or any crisis, anything you want to share with us?
So, so yeah, from a community board perspective, I'm not a legislative official like Kenny is. In my function as state committee, our whole focus is to be the voice for our community, make sure that we're listening to the concerns of our residents and making sure that we play almost like a loud horn for our community, our people in the district. So in essence, we work hand in hand with Kenny Burgos, and we come in, to him and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm hearing from the community. These are the issues that they're facing. And then him as a legislature, he goes ahead and creates laws and bills so that, we can go ahead and settle those issues that are going on in our communities. And in addition to that, as a state committee, we're in charge of the messaging for the Democratic Party. So, for example, not to deviate, but the former holder of my state committee role, Mr. Kenny Agosto, he began the conversation around cash bail reform. He started seeing that there were a lot of Black and brown kids that looked like us getting incarcerated for petty crimes. They were going into jail, and then they were coming out with a PhD in drug dealing or in criminality. So he saw that issue. He created the conversation, began the conversation at the state committee level, and then the assemblyman, i.e. someone like Kenny, went ahead, took the conversation, and now created it into law. So we have a very, almost like an outside view when it comes to the role of state committee, but we play an important function in making sure that individuals in the community, our elected officials, are hearing the concerns of the district. Now, from a community board perspective, I work on a hyper-local purview. So I worry about the main areas that cover my community board. When it comes to the pandemic and COVID, as I mentioned earlier, our community board was hit with the most COVID cases. So one of the things that we did was we brought in Montefiore Hospital, we brought in our nonprofits, and we created a framework on how to get information delivered directly to the community. So we were able to educate our community members on ways to, stay healthy, stay safe, but also making sure that as a community board, we're letting our community board members know where they can get vaccinated, where they can get tested, and where they can go ahead and, just be safe overall and get the necessary help that they need.
Thank you. As we're talking about our community and basically a district and community, they're connected together. So one of the things I want to bring to both of you gentlemen attention that what is really actually two things that really affecting, among others, which is the domestic violence and also the youth drug abuse. This too is rising. And there is other issue also. We're going to go a little bit later. Why do you want to identify one or two main reasons that why is rising and rising mostly in the Bronx and mostly in the maybe South Bronx or maybe still in the North Bronx, and both of your district is kind of fall into the same kind of neighborhood. So how you identify what caused this two categories number is going up? Kenny, go first.
Yeah, thank you, Roz. Those numbers are certainly increasing, and it's obviously worrisome for community members and elected officials and everyone, obviously that witnesses this. One thing I do want to point out is that prior to COVID, New York City was at record low crime levels, right? So we need to always take a look at that from that viewpoint. Record low crime levels in almost every single statistic. Now bring in COVID. COVID, again, has upended our entire lives. We have to quarantine. People have lost their jobs. People are going hungry. People have no money. Those are all pieces of a puzzle that unfortunately bring about more crime. Again, it's horrible to see, but when you talk about domestic violence, right, think about, unfortunately, a couple or an individual that's maybe in a setting and undergoing this kind of domestic violence. Now, we have a mandate that you must stay home, maybe more than you typically would, where you would go to work or go to school. So now you're under more stressful conditions. Now these cases increase. Now there's more reporting. So these are cases that we're worried about. And again, COVID has kind of, made this more aggressive, but we have to always look at it that we had the lowest crime rates prior to COVID. And now with COVID, our crimes are unfortunately increasing. But I think as a city and state, I think we can dig our way out of that again once we lead this path to recovery.
Emmanuel, you want to add anything on this?
I would say, just to add on, to Kenny's point.
I want to add something. What is the one thing we can do to prevent it or help the situation? As a community board, do you have any program on that?
So really what it comes down to is education, really, and engagement. Although, from a community board perspective, there's only so much we can do in terms of, letting people know what they can do and not do in their homes. But when it comes to engagement, I feel that, isolation is a big problem. And that's why a lot of the issues are occurring. When we're isolated from social interactions, from seeing family, from seeing friends, these issues occur. So one of the things that, an initiative from the community board perspective is just try to engage and do a lot of outreach into our communities so that our residents know that they're not out there alone, or they're not out there by themselves dealing with the pandemic and the isolation, that they have a community behind them. So one of the things that I do as a community board chair, I do wellness checks. Not just on our community board members, but also to community residents who are actively engaged. Just do a simple checkup just to see how everyone's doing. I feel that, one of the things that we've noticed is if we have that connection, if we have that touch, and people see that the human element is there, they're less likely to have anxiety, to have stress, and less likely to commit those domestic acts. That's something that I do on a personal level. It's not something on a legislative or an initiative, but it's something that from a community board perspective, we've seen that it helps out the greater community.
Thank you. As you talking about these two issues, is another one comes along is very quickly, and another two issue I should put it together, which is homelessness rising and same time affordable house crisis. So this is Bronx, is the borough, is the highly populated homeless shelter. So I want to ask the Vargas as a assemblyman, do you have any particular plan to promote or do any legislation how we can reduce the shelter and also increase the affordable houses, or at least increase the rent voucher?
Yeah, it's no secret. New York City has a homeless crisis, and we have had for many years at this point. But now, when you look at a homeless crisis is caused by a housing crisis, as you mentioned. A housing crisis is caused by an affordability crisis, and an affordability crisis is caused by a job crisis. So the issues we're having here, we have to get to the root. People getting gainful employment. If you don't have gainful employment, then it's very difficult to afford your home. There is an affordability issue with housing in our city as well. So we have to work on these two issues in tandem to fix this kind of thing. So again, I'm going to say, this is again where you have to invest in your community, where we have to really give people here in the Bronx fruitful employment, where they're able to afford a comfortable living without the risk of being homeless every single month if they, God forbid, miss a paycheck. The reason why we get so many of these shelters in our district is because, unfortunately, the Bronx is the quote-unquote most affordable area in the Bronx. So when the administration decides we need to put shelters somewhere, they always aim to our borough. Now, I don't like to vilify people who are homeless. I don't like to, always cause backlash on homeless shelters, but we also need to have some equity here. Now, if we're going to have shelters and we need to help our people, we need to have an equity throughout the city So every single borough and every single neighborhood should be taking their fair share in helping our neighbors in New York who need this help. But again, in the long run, the city needs to look at ways to really invest in true affordable housing, because frankly, we have affordable housing, quote unquote, that comes out. And here in the Bronx, you're looking at $2,200 a month. Now, that's not affordable in a borough where the median income is $37,000 a year. So I really do think that our administration and parts of our government are looking just in totally different directions, but we have to get at the root of the cause, and that's how we fix our homeless crisis.
Thank you. I want to add to the same thing for Emmanuel, but I want to also add, do you support another shelter coming to our neighborhood in the Bronx? Can you afford it? And if this is the case, what step you will take as your community, then which is other community may follow you? And also, I want your opinion on the real cause that as Kenny discussed.
So, in regards to the homelessness crisis and affordable housing, every key point that Kenny just mentioned, I totally agree with. A couple points I would like to add, more from just personal experience, seeing that my community board specifically, we've been having an influx of affordable housing, which is something we've specifically asked for in our capital budget each year. But the homelessness issue is something that's affecting us dramatically. For those viewers who understand the district, but along Fordham Road, on the corner of Fordham and Webster, there's a small little park there right next to the Fordham train station. We have a congregation of homelessness. We started seeing the congregation grow over time as the pandemic, got worse. So one of the things that we said is, what's going on? Who are these individuals coming in? We can't have so many individuals from our community actually being homeless. We started realizing that a lot of these homeless individuals really aren't from the city, the 5 boroughs. They're individuals coming from upstate, coming from out of state, and they're coming in utilizing our infrastructure to kind of come into our community. So we started realizing that because the demographic wasn't really representative of our community, we started, informing developers or different nonprofits that are coming in to build up shelters that, yes, they might not have an opportunity to build elsewhere, but if you are coming into our community, just ensure that the individuals seeking help are actually from the Bronx, so that we can take care, in the sense of the individuals that are hurting within our district, and then we can worry about elsewhere. So that's one of the things that we've seen firsthand from the community board perspective.
Do you think it's a good idea or suggesting that the rental voucher should be more increased a little more, or facilitated more, or give away more, that will help help people not to go to the shelter?
You want to tackle that, Kenny, or you want me to jump in?
I mean, I asked this Kenny too last time. I know you skipped.
Okay, so I feel that, yes, one of the items that we've been, increasing our request on in our capital budget on the community board is an increase on vouchers. One of the things that, just from canvassing the district and speaking to residents, is the number one issue that a majority of my residents are dealing with is rent burden. And that stems from an economic issue. So as city government, state government, I think one of the things that we can do is help subsidize our residents so that they can keep their homes.
You agree, Kenny? I mean, what you can...
I absolutely agree. I think rent subsidies are critical in order to help housing in our city. But one thing that I want to add that we need to focus on, right? There are many rent subsidies that we give out to people. The issue that we have is actually utilizing it. Unfortunately, we have a lot of landlords who illegally discriminate on these vouchers. You can literally call a landlord company now and say, hey, I'm looking for an apartment and I have a Section 8 or a City FEPS voucher. And sometimes they'll tell you straight up on the phone, we don't accept those. Now that's completely illegal. It's completely discriminatory. And these vouchers are meant to be utilized in any free market apartment that you can rent as an individual. So I think the city and the state or the city specifically, really need to increase enforcement here, because again, you have so many individuals that have vouchers. There are individuals in shelters, if you speak to them now, they have vouchers, but they cannot get
What
an
do you
apartment.
think? What is the reason I'm sorry to carry. What do you think the main reason landlord turn it down? Is the money? Is there any issue? What is there any problem? Or what is the struggle? Why landlord don't want it?
Landlords, unfortunately, put a stigma on people who have vouchers. They believe, for one reason or another, that they're not the type of tenant that they want. And again, this is all discriminatory. This is all completely illegal. So again, I think if we have to increase enforcement on landlords that are doing this, because these vouchers are good money. These vouchers are used to help people in need. But if people have nowhere to use them, then they're utterly useless.
Well, I just want to share with you, I have one complaint regarding this from the landlord side, from a friend of mine, and he said that when they take the voucher and after 6 months, some point, voucher stop, because voucher have so much requirement which is should be fulfilled by the tenant continuously, and they don't do that, and somehow the voucher get declined or somehow voided out, and then landlord gets stuck. That I don't know how much is true, but that was the one reason. We have to take a quick short break, but before we go there, I want to quickly ask quick question. 1 minute. Do you really, both of you gentlemen, you support or promote a bike lane to our boroughs? Because there's other boroughs have a lot of dedicated bike lane. Manhattan have a dedicated bike lane. Do you support more bike lane for Bronx? Kenny.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Sorry. Listen, I think the city needs alternate modes of transportation. I know that there are certainly communities and individuals who love bike lanes. There are some who absolutely despise them. So I think this is where we have to go down to the hyper local level and speak to people like Emmanuel, right? And speak to the board and say, listen, does the board want bike lanes? And if they do, where do they believe these bike lanes should be? Because maybe bike lanes don't fit into the fabric of every single street in our neighborhood. We can't just put them out in every single street if it doesn't work with the transportation and the pedestrian walking path and just the flow of traffic. So I think with bike lanes, I think if the community board and people on a super hyper local level want them, then we absolutely should be implementing them. But again, if you have a large cohort of people who say, listen, this doesn't work in our traffic flow, this doesn't work in our community area, then we need to take that into account.
Thank you. Manuel, quickly, please, in a 30 seconds, because I have to go to break.
So from the community board perspective, our community board specifically, we're getting hit with a lot of bike racks and bike lanes set up. And we're kind of even split. I would say marginally we're in favor of bike lanes, but the big thing is parking. As you know, we're in a desert when it comes to parking in the borough. So most of our residents are in favor of it, but we do have those qualms when it comes to parking and car issues.
Thank you. I'm going to take a break, and we'll come back right after that. Dear viewers, we're having a Friday Night Real Talk. You're watching. This is our 19th episode, and here we have two great guests. Is a Assembly member Kenny Vargas, and also a Community Board 7 Chairman Emmanuel Martinez. We're all going to come back right after the break. Please stay tuned. Bye.
আপনি কি বয়স্ক পিতামাতা ও গুরুজনদের দৈনিক সেবা নিয়ে চিন্তিত? ভাববার কোনো কারণ নেই। সিনিয়র মাল্টি সার্ভিস ইনক আপনাকে দেবে বয়স্ক সেবার সকল সমাধান। আপনি কি বয়স্কদের সেবা করছেন? তাহলে আপনার সময়ের মূল্য হবে উপযুক্ত পারিশ্রমিক। এসএমএস ইনক স্বল্প মূল্যে বাড়ির দৈনিক কাজকর্মে যে কোনো ধরনের বয়স্ক সেবা দিতে সদা প্রস্তুত। নিউ ইয়র্ক স্টেটের বয়স্ক ও অক্ষম বাসিন্দাদের আস্থা এসএমএস ইনক এর পূর্ণ ব্যবস্থা। বিস্তারিত জানতে কল করুন 347-778-5252।
My name is Mohammed Majumdar. Since 1989, I have been living in Parkchester. I have spent the last 30 years in the community organizing and helping my district because the actual people in the community need a voice. I want to continue build the Bronx. I cannot build alone. So in June 2021, I'm asking for your vote.
Paid for by Majumdar for the Bronx.
Dear viewers, please welcome to our Friday Night Real Talk. This is our 19th episode, and just after the break, we were talking about, before we go to break, is a lot of our community issue. Today's our show, we kind of focusing on our local community issue here in the Bangladeshi American community in the New York. We will try to touch base a little bit national issue. So again, please welcome our two great guests today. Is Kenny Vargas, Assembly Member, and also Emmanuel Martinez, Chairman, Community Board 7. So before we go to break, we were kind of talking about a lot of issues in the cities going on. And one more thing I'd like to bring it out. I want to ask Assembly Member Kenny, because it is your district. The one thing that we're talking lately, there's a Rikers Island issue. Do you support the closing the Rikers Island? And I know it is a lot of city issue, but I'm sure there is something to do also in your assembly level. But anyway, as your district, what is your opinion? And if you do close this, what is the alternate? And do you support building small jail in the neighborhood? Can you hear me? Please.
Yep, I hear you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
You didn't hear me at all?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
So, yes, I represent Rikers Island at the state level, and I'm actually making a visit there next week. But also, I want to just pull back real quick. So, to Emmanuel's point, right, at the state level, we have implemented the removal of cash bail. We know very well that a big portion of people in Rikers Island who had not even been charged, inmates who were held there because they couldn't afford bail. So, in essence, the city was criminalized property. There were people who were literally in jail because they couldn't afford $100, $200 bail and had to stay in Rikers Island for me is an absolute.
But that's have to do with the bail reform.
Yes, but I'm getting to the point of Rikers.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of laying the framework there. So essentially, we have now decreased the population in Rikers. So yes, I think Rikers has a history of horrible practices that needed to be shut down. The island was just a place of terror at this point. People who were coming out there traumatized, people were committing suicide. And if we're going to have a jail system to punish people, it should be rehabilitative, not punitive, because otherwise these people are going to come out of there and come back into our society. And then what is going to happen when they're given no other resource to kind of reintegrate into our society? They will repeat offense. And then we're going to go through the same cycle over and over again. So I do support the closing of Rikers. As far as the borough-based jail plan, I don't appreciate kind of how the city went about it in this way. I think we could have looked at different options in ways to house the small population we would have, because it is a small population of people that commit the crimes in New York City. But I do believe there was a real large lack of community input in the way that these borough-based jails are being put out.
I know you tell me you want to visit the Rikers Island, but do you have an idea what is the nature of this jail? I mean, is it like an abusive kind of jail, or it is like you say it's not a rehab? So what? It's like just because it's the way is set up or is meant to be abusive?
It's a culture that has essentially been allowed to perpetuate within Rikers. It's a giant complex. And I mean, the stories that come out of there will blow your mind away. So again, I mean, it's not that the jail is designed to be a place of terror, but it has become that. So I think in essence, we need to look at the entire facility. We need to lower the population in there, and we need to completely reimagine how it is we have the jail population, how it is we do jail and prison in our state and in our city.
No, but I know you're promoting closing it, but why not reducing the population and try to not to overflood it because of the bail issue, and same time keep it organized and reform it just for the those criminals who are received a sentence for their time. So why the option is closing? Why not fix it?
Because unfortunately, Nas, the city in attempt at small reform have unfortunately failed. We've tried small reform in small ways. So I think in this moment, we really need to take advantage and just have a complete overhaul. The place is dilapidated. The facility has been full of disrepair for years. So it's going to be incredibly difficult just to decrease that population and try to do this kind of reform and revamping it while you still have a facility operating there. And we're looking for high impact change now, not change to come when my kids get older.
Yeah, I want to go to Manuel. Manuel, you heard everything Kenny Vargas said, but my thing is, we already overwhelmed with the homeless shelter. We don't want to close the Rikers Island. I'm sure when I say we, I'm talking about our community people in general, and we don't want a sub-jail coming to our neighborhood here and there. And what will be your position, and how will I don't know if Vision City have any plan to do that, and if so, how will stand up with this?
Okay. So I'm speaking from a community board lens. So I'm looking at a hyper focused and hyper local. So from a community perspective, me knowing my district, knowing the community members, they wouldn't be too happy with setting up a facility in our backyard, to be honest. But I think what it comes down to is understanding what Rikers is as an institution and how it was designed to be a stopping ground for individuals that are going through the court process or just being stationed before they get sent out to the state penitentiaries. Over the years, it's become a holding hub for people. So individuals that are waiting to see court for petty crimes are now sitting at Rikers for years. So although I agree with you, Nas, that our community individuals at the local level wouldn't want something to be built, but what it comes down to is it's either we deal with it now or we deal with it later. And it's about getting rid of an institution, a framework that has been misused for the incorrect reasons and correcting that moving forward. But from a perspective, I agree with you. The community wouldn't be in favor of it, but it's something that we have to take the Band-Aid off and have that conversation, deal with it now, because if not, it'll grow into a much bigger problem.
So let me clarify. So you say you for the closing the jail, Rikers Island, and built a community jail? That's what he's saying?
And for the closing of Rikers, me speaking as a community board chair and for my district wouldn't be for smaller jails in our area, but I, as Emmanuel, the state committee man, would encourage smaller facilities with a smaller base, more focus on programs so that we can rehabilitate the right way so that we can bring these inmates back into society. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to deal with the inmate population, but we have to realize that at some point they're going to become citizens. So although
Are you talking about, are you talking about the people who already get the sentence, or are you talking about people who just detainee pending some complaint?
No, the ones that are incarcerated. The ones that are incarcerated.
Okay. So anything else, Kenny, you want to add on this? No. Thank you very much. I want to move on to the next thing, also very much related to this one. Like we talked about a little bit crime earlier, the crime rate is going up. And can you tell me that's blame pandemic for that? But there's also another blame came from NYPD. They also said in the report that police defunding and also bail reform that trigger the crime, rising of the crime. So I want to ask you, both of you gentlemen, like, do you support the police defunding at this time? Because there's been a talk all over the city. Why or why not? And what is the alternate? If you defund the police, what is the other thing you can do? Do you think that going to cause the defunding police is related to the crime going up? Do you agree with that? Kenny?
Well, we haven't defunded the police, so we can't really going up.
Oh no,
you said
defunding not yet, but bail reform. The bail reform, the NYPD complained the bail reform is causing the crime going up.
NYPD's own CompStat data proves that bail reform has not caused an increase in crime throughout the city. That's been disproven time and time again. And again, police have not been defunded. What happened at the city council last year was a juggling of numbers and really a maintenance of the same consistent funding. So really nothing has changed in terms of funding to the police in the past year, and bail reform, again, has been proven by NYPD data itself to not cause an increase in crime.
So you deny, but do you generally support defunding police?
I think we need to look at our city budget. Our city budget is sometimes floating in around $92 billion. When you take into the NYPD budget with operating budget and the pension system, it tap over $11 billion. Now we're talking about 1/9 of the entire city budget goes to police. Now I won't say police have no home in our city. We absolutely need a form of police in the city. But when 1/9 of our money is being put to police, where is the rest of the money for healthcare? Where's the rest of the money for housing? Where's the rest of the money for school, for roads, for transportation? So again, we have to look. We have a finite amount of money, and we have to have our priorities straight. So I think there has to be reinvestment in certain things that have not been invested for so long, like public school education. Again, like our transportation system, the MTA is a crumbling system. Like our roads, which many people consider are potholes, the sidewalks are wrecked. So we have to look at our money as a finite amount and see what is the most important and what can help solve, again, our underlying issues. So I think, again, we have to just take a look at this budget and see what gives us, I guess, the most bang for our buck, if I can say it that way.
So I believe what you're saying, that we need to look at this police budget and we need to review it. What do you want to add, Emmanuel, on this about police defunding?
Defunding the police is just it's not right. I don't think, defund our police. They play an enormous role in our communities. They are the safeguard for our communities. They are the protectors of our communities. So defunding them just doesn't make sense. It's almost like you're going against the very essence of community in a sense. I would recommend more training for police officers, for sure. How to get out of high intense situations, and more appropriation to more mental health. Maybe the creation of a mental health unit within the NYPD that can deal with mental health issues, or how to deal with EDPs, emotionally disturbed persons. So I would say, the whole idea of defunding the police is wrong. We shouldn't even consider that. It should be more retraining, refocusing, and dealing with our mental health. Individuals that are facing mental health, dealing with that situation a lot better.
Thank you. I want to touch base one more good community issues. Actually, is all about the Bronx, and I mean, the social economic factors such as health, unemployment, poverty, street crime, education, all these level. Latest studies show that we are far below than other boroughs, the rest of the city. And one of the example I can just say, this is that the teen birth is about 55% higher in Bronx than other boroughs. And we have a higher kids growing up with a single mother here. And we have a huge problem with the environment, which is the asthma, 7 to 12%. The rate of asthma that's happening in the Bronx is like way higher than the rest of the city. So putting all this in a package, I mean, I want to ask Kenny again. I mean, rest of the term, what you think you can do to improve the overall life of the people of the Bronx?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably go on just on this topic alone, right?
Yes, it's very big.
I always believe the Bronx. I believe the Bronx is the forgotten borough, and that's been the case now, and it's historically been the case. You have to look back at policies previously and seeing what they've done to the Bronx. When you talk about the asthma rates, I mean, we literally have a highway ripping through our borough, fumes from tractor trailers and vehicles all day across the Bronx. We know for a fact that families who live nearest the Cross Bronx have the highest case of asthma. Now, that to me is a policy that somebody says, we don't care about the people in this borough. We're going to put this highway because cars are more important. We have the Brooklyn Expressway. We have the Bronx River Expressway. We have some families that are literally in a trifecta of vehicle fumes. And we wonder why their kids are born with asthma, and we wonder why our health conditions are the poorest here. You can talk about the food that is in the Bronx. You can talk about all of these issues that are socioeconomic and health impacts that just bring our borough down. And it's because people have overlooked our borough. People have put in these policies that have just been detrimental to our people from then until now. So the way we're going to fix this is reversing these policies. We're going to fix this is really, again, investing in our borough in a way that we haven't before. Investing in our borough to be greener. Investing in our borough to give people more sustainable jobs. Investing in our borough for people to have affordable and truly affordable and stable housing. But that only comes at government investment. We cannot continue to put these Band-Aid solutions. Otherwise, we're going to continue to kick the can down the road and give someone else a problem. So, I mean, again, this is going to come to real fruitful investment. This goes back to the point that I made in the beginning of the show, where the state needs to raise revenue. We really need to, kick it up. There's money to invest in our people and really help the Bronx and the people here in our borough.
Thank you very much. I agree. This is a forgotten borough, and mostly your district. I don't know if you mentioned also the Hunts Point have a huge traffic there, and it's really polluted, I should say, area. So same thing. If you remember, Manuel, the Bronx have a huge issues as far as health. I mean, I have a lot of data right in front of me. I don't want to waste my time to tell you, but he's just saying the health and economy, poverty, and of course the job unemployment. We're down of everybody in the New York City and definitely in New York State. What can we do together to reach out our mayor or governor to improve this situation, or our congressman, or whatever?
So from hyper-local perspective, what it comes down to is, of course, economics. We just need more opportunities, increase in revenue, increase in injection of funds into our community. But what it really comes down to is engagement. If we have more individuals from our community speaking up, more individuals from our community being a part of the community board, a part of civic associations, even tenant associations, then we can hold our elected officials, responsible, accountable for the situations in our community. If we think about Upper West Side, or we think about Brooklyn Heights, or we think about parts of Queens, those areas get the issues that they're dealing with, they get the attention and the response that they need in a timely fashion. Why? Because the engagement is there. The community engagement is there. Their elected officials, the city agencies, they know that if something isn't done in those communities, Mrs. Smith from apartment 5L on 79th Street is going to get up and come down or write a letter to the congressman and hold them accountable. So, in the Bronx, we need to increase our engagement, our involvement in civic groups and community boards, make our voices heard, so that when it's time to hold our elected officials responsible, they can come in and say, you know what, we're here to make sure that we can resolve the problems, or at least put a plan in place to get to a solution down the line.
Thank you. It's very nice. I appreciate that you bring this civic engagement that we have to improve. So, as a community board chairman, I want to ask you a question. I asked the same question last week because I had a community board 9 district manager here last week, and I asked them question. So, improve my representation in the community board. The way it is right now, my representative in community board is chosen and selected by the borough president, who have no connection with my issues, or he doesn't know what is my issue. So he randomly picking the people, but that people oftenly don't represent my issue as a community people. So I was asking, is it possible that find a method where I can elect, or maybe I can play a role to select my representative to the community board, who can bring my issue to there at least first place. And one way to do it, maybe also put them in the ballot. Do you agree with that this should be find a way to do it? Also, I want to ask Kenny follow up with that later, that, or even though he's in the state level, but I'll get your feedback, but Emmanuel first.
So in terms of electing individuals to the community board, that's good, but I feel like it loses the essence of community. The best way to answer is this: we have individuals that want to be on the board, but then the work isn't done. So I had, just to name this example, I had one community board member who became a board member after he basically went into the community, saw that there was a problem outside of his local train station. He started seeing the accumulation of trash, of garbage. Whenever he would call 311, they would basically say, oh, that's not a sanitation issue, that's a parks issue, or that's a Department of Transportation issue. No one was taking ownership. So what did he do? He told his kids, he said, look, we're a community. This is our streets. We pay our taxes. We live here. He grabbed bags, he grabbed picks, and he went out there with his kids to clean up, to pick up, to clean up. What happened? The borough president saw that and said, look, we have a community board, we have a resident who's engaged in the benefit and the betterment of his community. We have someone who's actively doing the work in the district without being told to, without being directed to. He just said, let's go out there. I see a problem. Let's go ahead and create a solution. So that type of individual was nominated to be on the board. So I do agree with you, as in, it should be a more broad process, but I believe that it comes down to individuals being responsible and engaging and going out there and doing the work.
Thank you. We almost end of the show. I have a last question for the Kenny. Also, we talk about many issue. Among them, I mean, I can go on and on, but there's another one is the Bronx is also a dirtier city. Our garbage don't get picked up. And whenever I have a little issue, the last time I see Louis Sepulveda, he posts some picture. He's our state senator, where is like a mountain high garbage sitting on the corner of the state. How can we improve the situation? What role you can play to make our city a little cleaner by the sanitation department, also by the homeowner or public to enforce them to keep it clean? Please.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think trash is a big issue here in the Bronx and in the city overall. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Sorry. But yeah, so I've been speaking with a lot of mayoral candidates because we're getting a new mayor, and really sanitation is a city issue. And I think the city needs to, again, look at how we pack. There's no reason why a building with 30 apartments should have to put all of its bags out on the sidewalk. That's why we have rats. That's why the trash looks horrible on the streets. That's why people can't even walk on their sidewalks. So I think we need to look at entirely new ways of our trash pickup. There be outside dumpsters that are nicely designed that the city can pick up and do it in a timely fashion. But the way our trash system is now is just not working. It's not conducive to a clean borough. It's not conducive to not having rats. It's not conducive to health. So I think it's the role, again, of the new mayor that we're going to get that we're all going to elect in June, well, in November, and to figure out how to have a new trash system here in the city. The state, unfortunately, doesn't really kind of partake in the city trash pickup. So this is where City Hall has to pick up its slack and fix this issue.
Thank you. I have 1 minute, less than 1 minute for Emmanuel. See, the trust also bring another one, attract the big rat and mouse. And can he just bring the very good thing that we should have a very good system to control and maintain and process our trash. If you visit another state, another city, you see that I go to vacation sometime, nobody put the bag outside. There is a container or small house outside. So what can be done to control those trusts, not to leave it in the street by the owner of the building, and protect from the big rat and keep our city clean and healthy? Please.
So I think this comes down to enforcement. And this is something that we've been speaking to the Department of Sanitation with from a community board perspective, but we've been letting them know, like, look, it's time for enforcement of proper sanitation code. Make sure that landlords aren't dumping garbage in the wrong areas. Making sure that homeowners aren't tossing their garbage in areas that shouldn't be. So it really comes down to enforcement and making sure that the city agencies stay on top of the matter so that these issues can get penalized for them doing the nefarious acts. And then on the flip side, from a community board perspective, it's about getting engaged and coming together. So one of the things that we've been working on with our Environment and Sanitation Committee is how to engage the community to take ownership of their streets, of their blocks. So we've been organizing cleanups, usually on a every 2-week basis or on a weekly basis, so that those problem areas, we're addressing it as a community, going in and cleaning it up. But if it becomes a trend, those are areas that we can identify for the Department of Sanitation to go ahead and do the enforcement on their end.
Thank you, Manuel Martinez. It's a great talk, and thank you, Assembly Member Kenny Vargas, for joining us today, for your time. It was a wonderful discussion. Looking forward to see you again. You wanna take a 10-second to say last word, Kenny?
Just want to say thank you, Nas, for having me. Thank you, everyone watching. And Gaming Kenny Burrows from the 85th District, covering Southview, Hunts Point, Longwood, and Hardy Park.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Viewers, You are watching 19th episode of The Real Talk, and we have two great guests, which is Assemblyman Kenny Vargas and Emmanuel Martinez, Chairman of Community Board. We discussed a lot of issues locally, mostly of our community, Bronxboro, and it's been great, and they give us a lot of information, a lot of hope, and I hope this all was helpful to you and helpful to our community. We're looking forward to have another show next Friday. Thank you. Until then, be healthy, be happy. See you next Friday again. Good night.